Let's have a show.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
WCYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. We have a lot of breaking news to dive into, and this is a major breaking story. The Iranian parliament is currently debating, and by debating I mean one of the individuals stands up and says something, and the crowd of the parliament begins chanting "Death to America." The Iranian parliament is considering passing, again, considering in scare quotes, a bill that would reward any individual who participates in the assassination of President Donald J. Trump of the United States of America with 50 million euros as a reward. Now, that's just from the Iranian parliament. There's some other bits and pieces in here that are also very, very concerning. And that boils down to some rather disturbing assassination signage that has appeared on buildings. We'll get into some of those details. What's going on in Iran right now is a very shadowy picture. And the reason that it's a very shadowy picture and what sets the stage for some of the most recent calls, which are, again, on any single scope, on any interpretation, a declaration of war from Iran against the United States. The current strikes on Iran are a little bit more murky. So before we get to the assassination stuff, allow me to give you a bit of an update on some of these strikes on Iran. Again, we have to put the breaking tag here with this as well, because some of these things are ongoing, and we're not quite sure who's participating in some of the strikes and the explosions. So first and foremost, there has been an official statement from both the United States and from the government of Israel denying carrying out any of the strikes that began being rumored at around 10 a.m. or 11 a.m. Eastern today, and then carrying through the burying of the former Ayatollah al-Khamenei, and then into about 5 p.m., 6 p.m. today, what was the last time that the United States or Israel was asked about carrying out some of these strikes. So far, we know that 2 definitive strikes, although there have been a series of explosions, occurred with air defenses active near the Bushehr region, the Bushehr city that is right next to the Strait of Hormuz, right next to that bend, and then near Ahwaz. Now, although state media right now is still claiming that Ahwaz, which is right next to Iraq and Kuwait, while still the government of Iran is claiming this is due to a gas leak explosion, which, come on now, like, don't, a gas leak explosion. Yes, that, getting that from the Mission Impossible playbook of government responses. Air defenses were activated next to the Kuwait and Iraq, kind of that western edge of Iran on the south, right there at the northern tip of the Persian Gulf. Now, Iran's Kanarak governor, Haqqani, has stated enemy fighter jets carried out 2 separate strikes on an Iranian Navy military zone, really out near the Gulf of Oman, on their Thursday evening, so just a couple of hours ago. This is where things are going to get a little bit interesting. The United States and Israel have directly denied any involvement with these strikes. Additionally, we don't have any kind of transponder footage. A lot of people on the open source intelligence accounts throughout the wide open world will track transponders on military jets and when certain aircraft turn off transponders or turn them back on. There were no indicators here that, based on the traffic patterns of United States refueling craft, that the United States carried out this a fighter jet strike or a fighter bomber strike here. So who does that leave? It could leave the Saudis. It could leave the Qataris, probably the least likely there. And it also could be a collaborative response by the Kuwaitis, the Bahrainis, and the United Arab Emirates. We know that there are 2 times specifically so far in this Iranian Gulf War II electric boogaloo in which the United Arab Emirates, using its Mirage jets, again, only France and the UAE, collectively use the Mirage 2000 jet. That's basically the only, if there were Mirage jets used here, there's very few other actors out there that could possibly be, you could call out for these strikes. Now, as to possible United States involvement, then we get into the weird territory. So just about 95 minutes ago, there were reported explosions and strikes in Kerman. Now, Kerman, as you will note, due to, again, if you're listening on the radio, I apologize, but imagine the Strait of Hormuz in your mind. Imagine a bent paperclip. And then imagine a little Google Maps red marker way the heck away from the blue on the map. Kerman is very well into southern Iran proper. So we are now seeing a series of strikes that are pushing back not only after the initial mountain ranges next to the Strait of Hormuz, but we are also starting to see strikes further inland into Iran. And not just only those strikes further inland into Iran, we're also seeing ethnic conflicts. The unrest in which 4 Basij members were killed in an armed attack in Mashhad on 2 different checkpoints on Thursday morning. This was close to during the time of the burial for al-Khamenei. Now again, why does this matter? You know, what's kind of the point? What's kind of the ins and out here? Well, the Mashhad situation, that's right next to Turkmenistan and Afghanistan. This is that border conflict region where you have a lot of ethnic groups that Iran was really hoping were going to keep to themselves. And they had funneled some of the IRGC away from this ethnic region down into the southern and western parts of the country. So again, we've already talked about some rumored reports of maybe the Kurds being active in western Iran. That's obviously on the opposite side of where this particular explosion was, but other ethnic groups that are not exactly in a very restful mood at the moment, striking in a checkpoint series of shootings. This, of course, near the border with Turkmenistan. Now, that brings us all the way over to some of the updated information that we have on Iran's calls for assassination against the President of the United States. So in addition to the Iranian parliament considering this $50 million euro payment for the head of the President of the United States, which I was assured, by the way, that Iran wasn't doing that at all. There are also, and again, by the way, we're monitoring, there are several series of explosions and things that are being reported at all time. We're keeping an eye on this throughout the evening. There are a couple of high-rises that were seen with banners that had some kind of raised fist or some kind of strange praying hands that said, "We will kill Trump." And then the same thing stated in Arabic. And you can also see here a group of individuals that are also carrying this banner through the city. Again, you can see on the edges of the crowd, armed members of the IRGC making sure that those who are carrying the banner do so properly and don't fall out of line. But it's not just that. There are a couple of videos that are now emerging outside, from the inside of Iran, and where you can see them very clearly holding up signs that not only call for the assassination of the President of the United States, but also for the assassination of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, the head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, and then Secretary of War Pete Hegseth.
این پلاکارتایی که دستتون گرفتین تو تشییع از آقا چیه؟ معنیش گفته که هر کس ترامپو بکشه $100 million جایزه به این هشتگ. So what this lady is saying is she's holding up this sign, again, which says $100 million reward. The silhouette of Trump's face back to back is emblazoned on this poster. $100 million reward to hashtag kill Trump, and then Netanyahu, Pete Hegseth, and Dan Kane as well. So again, no money going on in the country right now. Not exactly a flourishing economy. Things are very bad. People can't afford food. Inflation is purely insane. But boy, we have those FedEx Kinkoed posters ready to go. And apparently the Iranian regime is claiming that it has the money ready to go if someone successfully assassinates the President of the United States of America. Now, again, the president has acknowledged for quite some time he's been at the top of this particular hit list. And it is, in fact, contributing to the president's loss of patience on this matter.
I'm number one on the kill list for Iran. They're lovely people. I'm number one. So I don't know. I can't tell you that, but I don't really care because I'm doing my job and I'm doing it, I hope, better than anybody's ever done it because we have a country that's hot and really, really successful. But I mention it only because it's on the list. I mean, it came out. There was another list came out yesterday, and I'm number one on. I like being number one on TikTok better, but I'm number one on the list for killing.
Again, in this particular instance, the ability to look in the face of assassination attempts, of which the man has faced several. I was present for one of them. To just look at it and laugh and say, I'd rather be number one on TikTok, Marco, wouldn't you rather be trending on TikTok with the dancers, but I guess I'll be number one for Iran. There's a certain level of gall and just some real cojones to kind of treat it that way. Again, whether you like the man or hate the man, that certainly can't be understated. Radio crew, we have to send you guys over to the commercial break before the FCC puts a bounty on my head. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. We're going to continue on the live stream. Now, in the meantime, over here back on the countryside, the Democrats are in significant issue, and not just because of electoral reasons. Please do not believe that as we're covering this stuff here for you, that it's only about the polling and the electoral matter. We will get to the sheer cuckery of the establishment part of the Democrats here in a little bit. But it also comes from the actions directly called for. You have members of the Democratic Socialists of America who are arguing quite clearly that the United States needs to be overthrown from the inside. This is the Democratic Socialists of America, who have candidates all the way from Michigan to Colorado to New York to California that Zohran Mamdani is very proud of. Again, here is this group of interesting parlor pinks saying that insurgency is key and it's what we need to do.
And, we have a unique responsibility to act from the heart of empire, the belly of the beast. The most important thing that we can do is take that empire down from within.
Our role ultimately is to facilitate our own empire's failure in ways that we can, ultimately to overthrow our own empire.
U.S. imperialism is not a thing that can be reformed away. It has to be.
Again, wearing the keffiyeh, the Palestinian Islamic open terrorist Hezbollah and IRGC keffiyeh there. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Be overthrown through revolutionary struggle.
And to build a mass movement that can use the leverage of workers to hit...
Not them. This genderously ambiguous individual isn't going to be doing the working. No, just the calling for beheading and assassination and the violent murder of anyone they disagree with.
A kill switch on American imperialism here within the American empire.
Now, in the meantime, and again, here we go. In the meantime, this crew hasn't taken power across the country just yet. We might have a little bit of a clip for you later in the show. I just got done talking with Laura Ingraham over at Fox News, a little bit about the El-Sayed situation in Michigan. And then, of course, we have the Colorado candidates, the Californians. Before we get there, though, out of New York, the current party leadership still believes that they can get up in front of national media and just awkwardly William Shatner, Obama, love child their way through any kind of a discussion. So here's Hakeem Jeffries. Again, I told you the sheer cuckery was going to come to play, saying, well, Donald Trump is actually lost and I'm still in charge. He's not in charge.
The reality is this is a reckless and costly war of choice that Donald Trump has plunged the country into, wasting billions of taxpayer dollars when this guy and Republicans won't spend a dime to actually make healthcare more affordable.
Now, why mention healthcare? Why bring in healthcare at this point, in this time, in this exact way? There's a very key reason as to why. The reason that Hakeem Jeffries here has to throw in healthcare is because all of the young socialists who, again, are advocating for overthrowing the country, their excuse, all the way from Graham Platner and the super duper ultra rape and fraud and every other kind of allegation you can be thrown, all the way from Mamdani to El-Sayed, from Bernie Sanders to AOC, even Kamala Harris is trying to push this universal healthcare. So Hakeem Jeffries is desperately clinging to this technocratic end of the establishment reign by blaming everything. Republicans are bad because they're not giving you the endless wait times and you might as well just commit suicide strategies that we're getting from the Canadian or the European kind of crew on their socialized medicine. Again, the United States is still funding their defense. But anyway, Hakeem.
Instead, they've gotten us into this war where gas prices are through the roof.
They are no longer through the roof.
We need to end this reckless war of choice now. And we're going to continue to advance war powers resolutions in the House of Representatives until we get that done.
Okay, because war powers resolutions mean absolutely nothing. They mean nothing. So excellent. No wonder that his own members of his own party, again, we're going to talk a little bit here in a second about what people are actually doing. In Mamdani's New York City, the top official in Mamdani's administration's Office for International Affairs, is doing something other than war powers resolutions. Now we get to the really, really spicy stuff. And we're going to have to make sure that we're very careful with our language here for predominantly legal reasons. Radio crew, you're joining us out of your commercial break. So, according to the City Journal, a project of the Manhattan Institute, Commissioner Anna Maria Archila was scheduled to meet with one particular foreign man. This foreign man, Al-Sayed Irvani, he just so happens to be Iran's ambassador to the United Nations. So in case you're not catching this, while Hakeem Jeffries is on CNN going, we're going to keep passing war powers resolutions because we're mad, we're angry, in a box with some rocks, on a train with a plane, that kind of stuff. Zohran Mamdani and the Democratic Socialists are saying, fine, then we'll just commit treason. In any time when their Congress of the United States has imposed sanctions on a country, has declared another regime to be at odds with the United States, in other words, there exists a form of conflict on the geopolitical stage that has been legitimized either by the State Department or Congress. It's one or the other, folks. The Supreme Court doesn't get to make any say here, by the way. Congress or the State Department, if they say the Iranians and the Iranian regime are persona non grata, you are not, as a state-level official. There are a lot of states throughout the country, for example, that have like business relationships. They're like, for example, where I'm from in Indiana, we have like a sister town in Japan, and there's a little like Japanese style kind of hut on a trail in the town. That kind of a thing. This isn't that. In Mamdani's administration, Anna Maria Archila, the commissioner from Mamdani's Office for International Affairs, was scheduled to meet with Al-Sayed Irvani in an official capacity without even consulting the State Department. According to an internal memo found by the City Journal crew, Mamdani had encouraged his staff to prioritize outreach to foreign officials, quote, in political alignment, end quote. Those who are leftists, those who are to the left of the aisle, Mamdani ordered his administration to seek out foreign officials aligned with him. Again, Mamdani's also called for the ending of the blockade of Cuba. Mamdani has also extended overtures to Chinese officials. Mamdani has declared his city to be acting in some sanctuary fashion against the temporary protected status ending. And now here you have Mamdani directing staff to go and meet with a group that is right now ordering a bounty on the heads, not just of American officials, but have also consistently stated that they were attempting to kill American civilians here at home and abroad. Now, the State Department did intervene and said, you can't do this. We will arrest each and every one of you. Please, please. By all means, today, if possible. That would be grand. But anyway, it should be noted here that Archila, of course, has zero diplomatic background. I know.
Oh, there's a big surprise.
She's just a longtime activist, the ex-co-director of the Working Families Party. Now, has she ever actually worked? Again, we're the party of the worker. Have any of these people ever actually worked real jobs? No, not at all. Unless you just count endlessly sitting in grad school as work. Working my patience, perhaps. Now, of course, this isn't the first blow up. Mamdani also tried to organize a kind of foreign meeting with Petro, the leftist Colombian president who's now been ousted in that last election. That meeting got killed last month after the State Department denied Petro's visa. So Mamdani is just actively and openly not only trying to work about the socialist, democratic socialist aims, which understandably so, I don't have an issue with an individual advocating for their ideology. The left going through its poisoned tea party right now. But in this particular instance, Mamdani is acting directly against the will of the United States State Department. He doesn't have the authority. You, as an American, do not get to conduct your own foreign affairs, especially in an official capacity. That ain't allowed. That's not part of free speech. That's not advocacy. That's not activism. That's illegal. You're not even allowed to try to broker special agreements with other countries. For example, if Indiana wanted to broker an agreement in an official capacity with Japan, it has to be approved by Congress and the State Department because states under the framing, we dealt with this under the Articles of Confederation here in our 250th year and talking about the history of our country. We actually settled the whole states having special agreements with other nations and localities. That's kind of a big deal. Now, there's other chaos right now because Mamdani has to, get out and wave the flags and impress everyone with how incredible and amazing and super duper his empathy is, I suppose. And so he releases a brand new, exciting map that is essentially just, here are all the pockets of approved colors of people in New York City. So all of the different immigrant neighborhoods. And it sparks a good amount of outrage because when you think of immigrants and New York City, the two most prominent in American history that would have different areas in New York City, maybe other than today, we'd always think of a lot of people that go to visit New York, you got to visit Chinatown, is often mentioned. The Irish area of New York City is not mentioned at all. And the Italians are not mentioned at all. Now, Little Ireland is officially in Woodlawn Heights, but it's often called Little Ireland. It's on the north border of the Bronx. Is it on this map in any way, shape, or form?
Nope.
Is there any Jewish community here? Again, Jews are known to be in New York City. Are they anywhere on the map?
Nope.
Again, even though Borough Park, Brooklyn, and Crown Heights. And then, of course, we get to the Italians, who are also very, very angry, and justifiably so. The Italian American Civil Rights League stated, quote, Zohran Mamdani wants to erase Italians. First, he denied our permit for Unity Day in 2026. Now he is excluding Little Italy as a recognized location altogether on the map. Italian Americans built New York City. Survey says that's correct. Absolutely true. Not third world Ugandans. We stand against communists. Again, that's from the Italian American Civil Rights League. Now, who are some of the important ethnic groups that Mamdani had to make sure he mentioned? Because apparently there are special little neighborhoods. Now, I've been through a lot of these different areas at different times. I've been to Little Italy. I can tell you a little bit about what Little Italy looks like, and more importantly, what Little Italy smells and tastes like. Can I get an amen? But in the terms of these other areas, I've never heard of Little Bangladesh, Little Tibet, Little Caribbean, Little Colombia, Little Dominican Republic, Little Palestine, Little Odessa, Little Senegal, and everyone's favorite, Little Yemen. Now, the reason that Little Yemen cracks me up is that there's kind of a running joke in Friends that whenever Chandler Bing, and Friends, the sitcom took place in New York City, whenever Chandler Bing wanted to get away from his really, really, really annoying ex, Janice, oh my God, Chandler Bing, that gal, he would often make up that he was going to Yemen. And the reason the writers said later in like a documentary on the show that they picked Yemen every time is because Yemen has like no presence whatsoever in New York City. So they couldn't offend anyone by saying Yemen. It was the most foreign thing. Mamdani's like, hey, Little Yemen. Everybody knows Little Yemen. Your favorite Yemeni dishes? Nothing? Good times in New York. Excellent, excellent stuff. Now, there is some things that Zohran Mamdani is very excited about. He's going around doing the old Joe Biden situation where he finds all the drag queens and excitedly talks about how gay he is and how everyone around him is gay. Is this like super duper scandalous? No, it's just really weird.
New York is so gay. Hello. And we're happy about it. And we're happy about it.
Either you are born a certain orientation and it means nothing and it's just kind of a thing, or it's something you're weirdly obsessed about for no reason. But, anyway, Radio Crew will catch you guys on the other side of your commercial break. There are some other individuals who are really supposed to be in alliance with this crew. They're cutting some ties, and that all brings it down to Platner, of all people. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, well, they're at the commercial break here. A Harlem pastor is also going viral for going off on Zohran Mamdani. And when the pastor from the boroughs begins by dropping the N-word, boys and girls, that's going to be a spicy sermon.
Who had the slightest inclination to vote for Mamdani. There's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with you. You sick. Mamdani had a celebration down in City Hall of all the immigrants, all the Muslims, all the immigrants down there.
No N-words, as is the bleep term there for those who are listening and not watching.
Here's a man that hates the Constitution
Survey says, you're right, preach on, sir.
And that which makes us Americans. He's a Muslim, for crying out loud.
Now, we're going to get to some of this a little bit later, because James Tallarico down in Texas, Mr. Super Duper Democrat Christian, the man who's apparently, supposedly the most ultra evangelical, he's like telling us about Paul and the book of Galatians, and he's like weaving all of this incredible scriptural knowledge. He falls off the wagon here really hard, right around Mecca, for the record. But anyway, we'll let the pastor continue.
He's a jihadist at core. His wife is a jihadist, Hamas supporter, intifada believer.
If you have never had, so again, as a Baptist, an independent fundamental Baptist, our preachers do get fiery and brimstony. A black Baptist preacher, if you've never had the treat in my, part of the denomination of sitting in one of those services, you've never lived until you've heard an old man call someone that he doesn't like, and I quote, lesbian communist whore. Oh boy.
He talking about Mamdani gonna give us a free bus ride. Hell, it doesn't matter if they're handing out free sandwiches in hell. I ain't going. Are you crazy?
Why do I show this to you? Like, Tony, what's one preacher? Again, this is supposed to be the coalition of Barack Obama, where he's going to rally all of these individuals out there who are part of these disparate groups, and he's going to unify them and glue them together. I guess as though they all say, wow, I'm a lot closer to you on the Sherwin-Williams paint chart than that white person. That's the move. The problem is that doesn't put food on the table. And again, what the Reverend's pointing out here, even if it does put food on the table, it's not worth it if it's in hell. Spicy stuff. If you are losing those on again, there are the reason a lot of Democrats will will go do rallies in a lot of what are traditionally black churches is because those congregations tend to be very passionate individuals who get out and vote. On the right and the left. Man, I tell you what, them down-home Baptist churches, we get out and we eat a casserole, we take a nap, then we wake up and we get to work. And in this case too, if you're losing these individuals, it's going to be a rough time when you get out of the primary and into the main election. Now, there are a couple of other details we should talk about regarding New York before we get to the rest of the national game, because what Mamdani is also doing today is calling for a couple of George Floyd-style riots, because of course he is. I should also mention that there were churches firebombed in New York City last night. The suspect's name, you and I both know it's not John Smith, it's Yogesh Sarranj. Assistant U.S. Attorney Ashlyn Miranda said he's linked to at least 7 other acts of arson over the last 2 weeks. Man, it's a good thing we don't have a ton of candidates right now that are calling for defunding the police and abolishing ICE and all of these other various things. It's just not difficult. Now, unfortunately, we have to move on from this and cover some of the situations developing down in Texas. It's not looking too great there either, and I'm hoping it doesn't get too extreme. Radio crew, welcome back from the commercial break. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast. Now we get to the situation down in Texas. So an individual, a Mexican national, and I want to make sure that I get the details right here. His name is Lorenzo Salgado Arauj. This individual attempted to run over an immigration customs enforcement officer. Now, we do have the clip where he tries to apparently run over the officer, I believe. I don't think this is just the news coverage in general. Let's check here.
Secretary General, how...
I don't have that clip. Let's pull that clip up here because I want to make sure that we view the footage before we get into the analysis, before we get into, again, people trying to call for this, that, and the other. Here you go. So this particular Mexican national tried to run over an immigration customs enforcement officer. Producer Allison on the WIBC side, you might want to have your hand on the dump button just in case. He tried to run over officers. And in self-defense, according to the Immigration Customs Enforcement officials, he shot through the window and the individual was killed. or the I guess the hybrid SUV in this case. Sorry, not necessarily a van.
That's so fucked up.
Yeah. Now, this immediately led to everyone assuming, just all over, that the ICE officer immediately guilty. Claudia Sheinbaum, the Mexican president, got out and threatened legal action against Immigration Customs Enforcement. That's just not how lawsuits work, by the way. Because an illegal alien was killed after using his car as a weapon against agents. So this individual, this Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, he is an illegal immigrant in the United States. He'd lived undocumented, again here illegally, in the US for decades. So according to DHS and ICE, I'm now going from the article from HoustonPublicMedia.org, agents attempted a vehicle stop at around 6:50 a.m. local time as part of a targeted immigration enforcement operation. Araujo allegedly ignored commands, then struck an ICE vehicle, and then tried to run over an officer with his van. So that means it's a hit and run. He's already, again, evading law enforcement. The officer, the vehicle coming right at him, fired in self-defense, striking Araujo in the abdomen, who later died at the hospital. Now we get to all of the family coverage and he was a wonderful, because we have to do this. Whenever you have a situation in which someone commits a crime and it can benefit individuals over on the left politically, again, whether or not this man was a good man, a bad man, a man in a bad spot, or a man who made a mistake and faced consequences, now what we are going to see him used as is a prop, a pawn. And so what do? You got to get out the old graduation photo, like the old style photos and stuff, all of that kind of just disastrous nonsense. I don't think we actually have the B-roll footage here. I wanted to make sure. No, we don't. We'll have to cover some of that here in a bit. In short, they're pulling out all of the old photos and they're going to his family. And of course, his family has come forward and said, well, he was a hard-working father and a construction worker with no criminal record. Well, other than, again, illegally immigrating into the United States. They said he was just driving a crew to a job site and he panicked due to unmarked vehicles. And again, the argument here is that, well, they thought they may be thieves. Thieves with federal identification on. Not guys just out there in shirts and jeans. So they questioned the official account and demanded full transparency, body cam and video evidence, and an independent investigation. And this brings us to, of all people, Zohran Mamdani. So you may notice that the story is taking place in Houston. It's in Texas. It is not right next to New York City. It is not right next to the area of operation and things that supposedly the realm of importance for Mamdani, for like making the lives of New Yorkers better. Mamdani gets out in front of the country this afternoon and says, essentially, well, I'll read you the tweet verbatim here. Quote, Lorenzo Salgado Araujo called Houston home for 35 years. On Tuesday, an ICE agent shot and killed him. His family learned of his death from a video before anyone bothered to knock on their door. Okay, guys, the reason that no one bothered to knock on their door, if the family is not supposed to be here and the guy's not carrying identification on him, how are you supposed to find his next of kin? I don't know if you guys know this, but like EMTs, like they're not psychic. And so if I'm in a car accident, God forbid, and the EMT crew shows up and they pull me out of the vehicle, they're going to reach into my pocket, pull out my wallet, and look at my license and my cell phone to see who to notify. So he's making it appear as though this death was hidden from the family. That's ridiculous. If you don't have any identification because you're not supposed to be here, and again, I'm sorry, if you've lived here for 35 years, why not apply to be a citizen? Why not stop avoiding federal law enforcement? Where is the idea that if you really, really want to, it's okay to break the law? If you're a really, really nice person, yeah, you can just violate it a little bit here and there. And again, this is just their account that Mamdani is taking rote. Now, we've seen this before with Zohran. We've seen this before with the Democratic Socialists. Heck, we just saw this with Graham Platner. I believe his account. He's an upstanding, good man who's learned a lot from his life. And then when they can't ignore it anymore, they dump him like a bag of trash. We saw this with the individual Mamdani went after the police officers for showing up and arresting a man who, when cops showed up to the house in which the wife had called New York City police. The individual in the house came at the officers with a knife, and that man was then arrested. Thank God the officers weren't harmed. Mamdani then went to go visit the attempted murderer, the almost knife-wielding maniac, in prison, and called for him to be let go. When the DSA crew says they want to tear down the country from the inside, they mean it. And whether that's Abdul El-Sayed saying that he wants to abolish police, and we're going to get to him in just a minute, or whether we're talking about the Bernie wing of the DSA announcing they want to abolish ICE. And anyway, to continue, quote, New York City stands with the Salgado family in demanding a full independent investigation and real accountability. As opposed to what? What happens when the investigation doesn't go your way? What happens when the city cameras, like the traffic cameras, if those are available, what happens when those show the guy tried to run over police officers? Just because you really, really want to, just because you don't trust the federal law enforcement, doesn't mean you get to start mowing over a bunch of federal law enforcement. So to the Salgado family and any immigrant family in this city living in fear, we grieve with you and we will continue to stand beside you in the pursuit of justice. And then very, very little at the end, quote, abolish ICE, because that's what it's all about. Now, again, we talked about earlier on the show this week, the numbers of arrests of active foreign spies, not that are committing open and wanton sabotage, but that are trying to scam you, who are trying to siphon money from you in massive scams, holding your companies, your hospitals in ransom, and then releasing your data anyway so that your identity can be stolen. You won't even know about it. Those are the individuals that Immigration Customs Enforcement is partnering with law enforcement in other states, localities, and then other federal law enforcement agencies in order to get this kind of stuff fixed. Now Patrick, in the live chat, he sends a $10 super chat, very kind of, he says, quote, so let me get this straight. A guy in the country illegally was trafficking illegal workers to an illegal job site. I have a bone to pick with that in a second. And then tried to run over a federal agent, got shot, and now we have people calling for protests. Correct? Absolutely.
Correct! Circle gets a square.
So what really bothers me is that I want to know who's running the job site. The guy who's running the job site that's relying on a bunch of illegals to show up and work at slave labor prices, that person needs to be thrown in jail today, not tomorrow, not 2 weeks from now, not a strongly worded congressional letter, today. If there are individuals here, and I've had my share of gripes with Republican congressmen who want to shield these individuals. Well, the economy says we'd have no one making hotel beds. I'm sorry, if there is an illegal immigrant who is working for you, you are lying on the labor data, which means you're not paying the same fees that the worker is owed due to federal law here in the United States. You're not paying the same level of taxes. And it's likely that they're working below minimum wage because what are they going to do? Report you to the police? They're here illegally. Now, there's no body camera or independent video of the shooting itself that's been publicly released yet, according to Texas Tribune. This is the second reported fatal ICE-involved shooting of a motorist in Texas in recent years. In 2025, in South Padre Island, there was a case involving a U.S. citizen who later raised questions about the official narrative. I've got a strong hunch that we are going to find out exactly what many of you already suspect. Now, of course, there's tweets galore. Chuck Schumer is angry, is routinely unleashed. ICE has routinely unleashed chaos and violence on our streets. Democrats will keep fighting for reforms to rein in ICE. And Kamala Harris, the same thing, but she did the old graduation picture routine. Lorenzo Salgado Araujo's family called him El Mundo Entero, the whole world. You don't have to do this crap. You can even disagree and call for an investigation without immediately lionizing anyone and everyone. Radio crew will see you on the other end of the commercial break. We're going to continue on the live stream. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. We have far more on the breaking news side to get into. All right, while they are away, there are a couple of other Texas stories we don't really have time to tackle for this show. We might get into it tomorrow. That being a Fort Worth police officer who's issuing citations to preachers for offensive speech. We might get into some of that a little bit tomorrow as we have more information. I have a couple of questions out to a source or two. In the meantime, I've told you about the Mamdanis and the lionizing of anyone and everyone as long as it's convenient. the decision by Democrats, not just the progressives, the squad, the open socialists and Marxists, who said that Graham Platner was just being targeted by the Jews, the Jews. Although, of course, there is that crew. So, like, that wing of the socialist Marxist left, and also Tucker Carlson and Marjorie Taylor Greene, those idiots, they said that Graham Platner, he's fine. I mean, sure, yeah, he had posts like 15 years ago where he was getting really rapey. And sure, he, you know, made the decision then to allegedly abuse several women and all of the other things we've covered in depth here on the show. Well, now we've got something really special going on because you have an entire party who's desperately trying to ditch the man they lionized. No one forced Ruben Gallego to get out there and defend him. There are many Democrats who kept their mouths shut. And by the way, are hilariously enough bragging about having kept their mouths shut. I understand. I've done that from time to time where I'm not quite sure about something, so I just don't say anything. Now, as a guy who tries to be very transparent with y'all, I really do my best, and I mean it. I really, really do my best to make sure that when it comes to this crew, I am letting you know when I don't know something or when I'm choosing to withhold information and why. Some of these people were just not answering because they didn't know, but they also didn't want you to think that they didn't trust the Democratic candidate. Well, now a lot of these people are desperately trying to run away, and Platner, who, again, we showed yesterday evening, we were on the air when he announced he was suspending his campaign and that he, quote, intended to file his termination paperwork to the thing. This situation has now gotten worse. Now, why has it gotten worse? Because, well, according to an individual on X, Frank Thorpe, he says, I'm told that no official withdrawal notice has been received from Graham Platner, and the deadline is 5 p.m. on Monday, July the 3rd. Why is that interesting? Because if they don't swap out by July 13th, he's on the ballot. And I think he's trying to cause a lot of individuals in the Democratic side of the aisle, he's trying to cause them a lot of, he's trying to cause everyone a bunch of dyspepsia for abandoning him. We covered this a little bit yesterday, obviously, in the video breakdown. But now we've got like different, like Morris Katz, his campaign strategist, is saying one thing. Bernie's crew is saying the other. We've got Platner. We've got like TMZ style footage of him outside of his Maine home. And of all people, freaking Miss Rachel, like the kid TikTok YouTuber that is getting in on the race. It's getting better, and it's national too. We got more. All right, radio crew, welcome back from your commercial break. Let's talk a little bit about how awful this is. And by the way, it truly is awful for this crew because Graham Platner already won the primary. He doesn't have to do boo. And he's trying to walk back. It's awkward. There are some reports, according to the Maine Wire, that right now the Maine Attorney General might be investigating Graham Platner for the rape allegations, which now gives me what I feel is the green light to tell you that there are federal officials who are looking into whether or not there may be any record of Graham Platner messaging minors as well as women after he started cheating on his newly married, his wife, newly married in 2023. He's opened up the Kick account with his towel, naked except for a towel profile picture. Pee hustle, as John Fetterman calls him. Now, there may be multiple criminal investigations at the state and federal level, so Platner's not in a good place. However, Morris Katz, his campaign strategist, says, quote, as soon as the team became aware of the rape allegations against Graham Platner, we advised he suspend his candidacy. Nope. That's not true. We already have internal communications that show that Morris Katz is lying. And in the following days, he worked to wind down his campaign. Like many of his supporters, I'm deeply disappointed. And one person asked, well, is he going to submit the paperwork? We're up against the clock here. Maine's trying to throw this little ad hoc Democrat convention together, and you've got a couple of horses jockeying for a position. I told you we have some TMZ footage. This, I believe, was acquired by Fox News. Is he in a rush to actually get this over? No. What's he doing right now is just dumping 5-gallon buckets and what looks to be a kitty litter bucket on the back porch. I hear you, man. Just wild times. Now, let's get to the fun. this is going to have oodles, canoodles, and toaster strudels of fallout for the rest of the party. It doesn't end in Maine. It doesn't. And it's not even going to end with Platner in Maine. It's going to spread to a ton of other elections and really down the ballot. So both Maine and nationally. Let's get into how. So first of all, Scott Jennings with this excellent take over on CNN yesterday. This is right after we had broken this particular news. And I'm not going to say that, Scott, right before he went on CNN Newsnight, watched my analysis of it. Okay, I am saying that exactly. Anyway, here's Scott.
While he was being supported through all the things that Brad was talking about, Democrats like Ro Khanna and Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren and on and on and on and on kept saying that, he's gotten over the rough patch in his life. He's apologized, Ro Khanna. He's on a redemption. He'll bring redemption to our nation. So they were willing to overlook or believe all of his explanations up until now. The only thing that changed is that he's no longer politically viable. His poll numbers went down to the point where it wasn't politically palatable to say that this redemption tour was going to be good for America.
Hey, that's absolutely correct. It is absolutely correct. Because Jamie Racikot, when she approached the media originally, it was for the New York Times. It was the New York Times piece back in June. And she was so outraged by the mistreatment of Lindsay Fifield by the New York Times and by many of the allies like Ro Khanna and Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders and Zohran Mamdani and all of that. I remember there was this story of redemption for Graham Platner. It wasn't that Jamie Racikot came out and then said, oh, hey, by the way, he raped me, which she did. The polls were already slipping. Poll numbers were showing in like B-list and C-list lean Democrat polls. And Susan Collins, because moderate and kind of mediocre candidates always outperform their polls, because no one's ever excited to get out there and rah-rah cheer whoever. But once you get to the polls, you're like, fine. Hey, oatmeal without any flavor is better than AIDS. That's kind of the approach. Susan Collins, better than Graham Platner. She was starting to pull ahead in the polls. If you have the mediocre, the moderate, who again, by just sitting there and kind of smirking and being quiet, did wonders for her campaign. That's the driving moment. Scott Jennings is absolutely right here. And then you have the crew that is still trying to say, I'm just as mad as you are. So Jen Psaki, she's now circling back and suggesting that actually she's outraged. She was betrayed. She had no idea that this was happening.
It is an end to what has been an unpredictable, incredibly tumultuous.
Okay, when I was making fun of her voice before then, I wasn't trying to do a Jen Psaki impersonation. I was really just trying to do the I'm not reading the lines, but I'm reading the lines. Holy crap, she's actually here doing that.
End to what has been an unpredictable, incredibly tumultuous, at times fascinating simply because of the political story, and ultimately deeply enraging political career.
Deeply enraging. You guys were all on board. Again, as I pointed out yesterday, and I had the chance to point out on News Nation this morning, we already knew all of this. Again, one of the reasons that this is going to drag down other people, and believe me, this is going to drag down all other kinds of candidates in the country. Dan Osborne, who is a Bernie Sanders-backed independent, and one of the young socialist progressives, yet again, Medicare for all. It's, we just want health care. He's the guy who picked Graham Platner. And again, you don't have to take my word for it. The actual staffer from Osborne is still on audio. I believe we played a little of this yesterday saying, oh yeah, he picked him. He found Graham Platner.
So he has also recruited other candidates around the country to run or doing similar things. Really? Like who? Well, there are a few independents. There are a few Democrats. This is not really out there publicly, but he recruited Who? He recruited Graham Platner. Oh, who that is? He's running in Maine. He's like news against Collins. He recruited what's the name originally? Yeah. Oh. Dan, after last election, he started a program to recruit working class.
So what she's saying is he started a program essentially to gather all of these working class individuals. Although we come back to the beginning of the show. I promise I'm not actually trying to plan all of this out. Again, my show notes, so that we have the transparency here, is quite literally just the screenshots of the tweet and like the general subject matter. When I tell you that they're all the same. They will tell you they're working class. They go out to find working class. None of these people are working class. None of them. Not a single one of them, but they find people who can kind of fit the bill. And as Vic Porcelli on News Talk STL made the case today, the reason that Democrats went in on Platner is because they understand, they know he's toxically masculine, because Democrats believe that the only other kind of man you can be, if you're not the feminine, kind of queer adjacent, there's another word I'm not going to use on air, very bundle of Stixian kind of guy, then the opposite of that is you're a women abuser, big, mean, tough. I did the rape and the murder, and I'm Graham Platner. That's what they believe is the toxic man. They have no concept of a gentleman, of a strong father and husband. None of that at all. Nothing. They have no idea. So they think this is the guy that's only going to be left. And because they shacked up to him and he said the exact same line as, again, Dan Osborne, universal healthcare, Medicare stuff. Also, we're going to end genocide. The Jews are super terrible. Also, Islam is super great. Everyone, you're going to love it. And also bread lines and nationalize all the industries. Radio crew will catch you guys later. We have more breaking news to get into on the show tonight. It's a good one. Don't go anywhere. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right, now that the radio and the TV broadcast crew is out, let's get into some of this really, really good stuff. Here's the fun. In Maine, because I told you, we got to start with Maine, it ain't looking too good for whoever replaces Platner. That's who it was supposed to be for. They were going to get rid of Platner, and then the next person who steps up, anyone, pick anyone at all, just get rid of Graham. And I'm sure that Janet Miller, Kamala, Troy Jackson is going to defeat Trump. Susan Collins. Nope. That ain't the case. So case in point number one, Troy Jackson. Troy Jackson is believed to be the hand-picked guy by Graham Platner to replace him. And he's already out there trying to mimic as much of the Graham Platner socialist speech as possible, but without saying it in manners that can also get him accused of, being Ruben Gallego, Eric Swalwell buddies. So Troy gets out there and says, there is a powerful movement of working class people. Nope. In the state of Maine, and millions more across America who are ready to send a progressive fighter to the Senate. If you are running for a House or a Senate seat, there's a very fun kind of a misnomer. Campaigning on the national stage is dumb. It's dumb. And I've said this before, and with a lot of these other primaries and general elections, a lot of these senators or Senate candidates, people who want to win these races, they think that they're running in New York City, where Chevrolet won. They think that they're running in LA. They have no idea they're not running there. They really don't. So that's why when they make these posts, they say not just the people of Maine, but also millions of people, just like, wow. Yeah, I just, no. So anyway, he says, quote, millions more across America who are ready to send a progressive fighter to the Senate. I've been fighting for that movement my whole life. I have no idea who you are. And I'm sure as hell not backing down now. You go, girl. When this fight is needed most, I'm in. And we're going to defeat Susan Collins. Maine deserves a senator that will fight for working families. He's a Mainer. He's a logger. He's a labor champion. See, he's still wearing his little shop jacket with the little name tag. See, he's got the credibility. This is the Democrat version of a Republican candidate eating an elephant ear at the state fair and looking as though they've never eaten with their hands in their entire life. That's what this is. For Democrats, it's, oh, I'm Mr. Industry, like when Pete Buttigieg wore the Caterpillar hard hat, right? Come on now. I have bad news for you. It just so happens Susan Collins is beating him with a belt. Again, Susan Collins underperforms in polls, but up against Jackson, according to Z2A polling, it is a Democrat poll. I'm going to say that again. The reason that Z2A is rated as a C-rated poll is because it is a Democrat-leaning poll on July the 8th. Boys, girls, and squirrels, and that's with likely voters, so that means it's better than just a registered voter one. Yesterday, Wednesday, in the year of our Lord, 2026, July 8th, Collins was beating Jackson 48-47. Why? Because he is just as bad as Graham. He just I sure hope to God, hasn't allegedly raped people. But all of the policies are the same. It's all a sham. And this is, by the way, this is the person that Bernie's Our Revolution group, all of Bernie's picks are having a rough time. Bernie's Our Revolution group is on media saying, we want Troy. He's our boy. He's great. He's no goy. That's kind of the, or maybe I guess he is a goy, because I've never quite figured out how that anti-Semitic crew complains about that. Anywho, here's the argument.
Here, why Troy Jackson?
Well, the important thing to remember here is that the people of Maine voted overwhelmingly for transformational change. They wanted a fighter who would challenge the status quo in Washington, D.C., challenge Donald Trump, and fight to deliver for working people. Troy Jackson campaigned alongside Graham Platner and Bernie Sanders all around the state, and they share the same platform: healthcare for all, fighting to end corporate corruption, making sure that the American people have what they need to succeed.
Okay, so anyway, this man's going to talk for eternity. It's the same stuff. It's just universal health care, going after Israel, freezing property taxes. And all over the country, they're going to try this and it isn't going to work. It may sound really great when you have all of the young theater children who have no meat on their bones, who've never worked a day in their life. All they do is they sit around and they yell at each other on Reddit. Sebastian Maniscalco has a really great comedy sketch on this. But there was a time when if you were really crazy, you just writhed around in your basement. And now we've given the internet a way for all of these people to connect and come out and vote in the primaries and get these candidates through. In the general election, this ain't going to work. The Democrats think this is their Tea Party moment. It's happening. It's going to be great. It's going to be amazing. And that's just not true. We've already talked about Osborne in Nebraska. He's the independent who was polling evenly with the Republican. Now, starting to slip because he's the guy who picked Graham Platner. And in Mississippi, and this is great, ex-Jackson Mississippi Mayor Chokwe Lumumba, who Bernie Sanders endorsed for his honest progressive values, pleads guilty to bribery. Yeah, that's just, yeah. Let's go. Everybody burn it all down. I'm excited. Are you excited? I'm excited. All of them. And by the way, Democrats, at least on the internal communication side, just as bad as 2020, just as bad as 2016, they are outraged at Bernie. Because Bernie picks horribly. Bernie's Jim Cramer. The picks for Bernie, the AOCs, the Ilhan Omars, the Rashida Tlaibs, the Pramila Jayapals, they get to Congress and they're made fun of because they're idiots. The policies that they promote are deeply un-American. They're deeply unpopular. The traditional wings of the Democratic Party, in this case, I mean like your what are called reconstructivist Black America, the preacher that we referenced earlier, and then your Bill Clinton kind of 1990s populists, that crew, the union line workers, those on the assembly line, the members of the electricity and the auto workers and the trade unions, those crews, they don't like this crap. They don't care for this crap. Union leadership doesn't mind because, you know, bribery for union leadership is just a day ending in Y, you betcha. And this entire strategy is already resulting in pushing other people out. What do I mean? Well, as of July 9th, the campaign teams of Senator John Fetterman, Democrat, and Senator Dave McCormick, Republican, in Pennsylvania, have just set up a joint fundraising committee. Please, producer Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think I am here, though. I can't think of a time in the last 40 to 50 years that we have had a Republican and a Democrat senator campaigning together. There's, by the way, the kind of odds markets are loving this. They're loving this. Why? Because there's very little chance that Fetterman and a lot of other Democrats stay in the party. You can say, why does that matter? They're still going to vote blue on a lot of cases. Okay, maybe. But if after Fetterman leaves, you have 5, 10, 20 Democrats in the House of Representatives in the middle of the country who leave, you think that all of a sudden they're going to turn around and like sing along in the next song when they're independents in the House? Nope. How do I know this? Jared Golden of Maine, Representative Jared Golden of Maine, who is now leaving the House. He's now leaving the House. His last term. He was the one Democrat in the House who would break and vote alongside Mike Johnson and the Republicans. Even when Marjorie Taylor Greene was licking her elbows and screeching in a corner and wouldn't vote alongside Republicans, and Thomas Massie was also huffing glue, you had Jared Golden who would chip in. There is a lot that is changing. Now, who's the last savior? The next Graham Platner? The one to save us all from our sins? I have exciting news. It's Abdul El-Sayed, the Islamic universal healthcare man. Man, I've heard this before. From Michigan. New article out from The Nation. Could Abdul El-Sayed upend Democrat politics for good? Wow, I'm amazed. So I had the opportunity this evening, in fact, really recently, to talk to Laura Ingraham a little bit about Abdul El-Sayed. Is he the next guy to kind of get Graham Platnered? Yes, he is.
Here with reaction is Tony Kinnett, is a national correspondent for the Daily Signal. All right, Tony, he's not as personally compromised as Platner, but his responses are pretty shady. So the primary is what, August 4th? How's this looking? Could he be Platnered?
I think that he absolutely could, Laura, and it's the right question because obviously the recent scrutiny on all of the Medicare for All candidates that are running and winning all of these primaries, this is one of Abdul El-Sayed's bread and butter, also being anti-AIPAC. Everything is Israel's fault. It's the same mainstays. And then when you start digging through just the slightest bit of previous statements, you get into just a smidgen of the statements that he's previously advocated for, like defunding the police.
What's that? Oh, what's that? You actually want me to show you those statements? Because we obviously don't have time to air those out in a Fox News interview. Well, sure, boys and girls. Here's Abdul El-Sayed stating on the record. By the way, he's tried to delete these tweets now and say, oh, it's all taken out of I don't want to defund the police. Defunding the police is absolutely 0% popular north of Detroit. Like outside the Ford Assembly plant? No. How do I know that? I talked to them. They're not a fan of that crap. Anyway, whoops.
Rather than investing in a force of people who respond with guns and put people in jails.
Yeah, rather than have someone who shows up to the knife-wielding guy or the people trying to run over others or firebombing churches or trying to murder people on the subway and showing up with force because the person may be mental or evil.
What if we were to take on systematic poverty by investing in the means of uprooting that poverty itself? What
if we just gave everyone free stuff? What if we took the person who is on the subway going, and what if we took that person and we gave them a hug? Yeah, we gave them a little hug. Aww. Yeah. And then we sat him down. We said, you don't have to be bad. You can be good. Here's free stuff. It's paid for by that person who has a job. You don't have to have a job. What you need is love. And then one day, the skies will open up and you'll be a great contributing member of society. Just look at Graham Platner and oh, Lord. Oh, heavens no.
If we were to invest in social services? What if we were to invest in public schools? What if we were to invest?
What if we just flush more money down the toilet for public schools? I was the science coordinator for Indianapolis Public Schools, the science director for the district. And I watched as our budget increased and increased and increased. And guess what happened to the grades? Now you have schools that are just faking it. They're like, give us more money. We'll tell you the kid can read. We'll tell you, we'll give him A's. We'll graduate him right through. And if God forbid a student should walk through the school and walk up to young ladies and gentlemen and hand them a piece of paper and say, hey, read this. And they can't pronounce any of the words on the page, but they're graduating high school, then we'll suspend, we'll go after the student for recording the video of all of his classmates not being able to read. Give me more money. Money me. Universal money. Give me the money.
Invest in public libraries. What would the world look like there? And I think that has to be the way we go. And that means both investing more in these services, and it also means investing less in police.
Okay. That's exciting, thrilling, neat, fun times for sure. Now, again, this is the guy that they believe is going to be their savior. But, again, just to throw things out, I don't recommend I don't recommend behaving like this personally.
He can delete tweets all he wants. Now we have the audio showing he said that in 2020. And then, of course, he's said consistently since then, he's some underclass average working guy, of course, as VDH just alluded to. And yet we have another case where he's been called out by his own media pals for being a millionaire.
Oh, what's that? You also want those receipts? Why, sure, Tony, from an hour ago, I'm happy to deliver. So when it comes to, not only is he a big fake and a big phony on the defund the police stuff, he's not average working class guy. He's a millionaire because of freaking course he is. Of course he is. Again, Mamdani, the same thing, right? His parents, mommy and daddy, super duper fancy professor and the movie producer. All of these fake I'm a populist. I'm a person of the people. I'm just like you. I'm just a working person. With their big fancy studios and their big fancy offices where they're going to tell you little people that you really need to trust them. Just trust us. So here's Mehdi Hassan pointing out, wait a minute, aren't you a millionaire? What's going on here?
Haley Stevens has also attacked you and Mike Rogers for being millionaires, who she says conveniently did not file their 2026 personal financial disclosures. You've sought an extension through August 13th, I believe, which is after the primary. Was this to avoid transparency with your voters? Why not release them before the election?
No, just taxes get complicated. My wife and her family own property abroad, and so getting all those tax forms is a thing. And this is, by the way, the same extension that
she says you're a millionaire and you're hiding that.
Well, if you take my assets and my wife's assets together, then I guess they add up to something like that.
That would be true. If you take the money that you have and the money that you have and you add it together, you get all of that money together. Yeah, that's some Charles Barkley level sports analysis. Terrible. Just incredible. All the love the Charles Barkley, just, the obvious take there. He's upset that people are pointing out, wait a minute, you have chosen not to disclose that you're a millionaire because you want I'm a working man just like you. And as you hear, even Mehdi, of all people, who usually has his head up his own rectum, saying not only is Haley Stevens calling you a liar on this, but also Mike Rogers. Now, this should be an alarm bell, 5-alarm fire warning for El-Sayed. But he thinks if he can just skate through this primary, he's good, man. I could beat Mike Rogers so easily. Don't be too sure about that. Now, the follow-up on MS Now, again, it's so unusual. Why all of this increased scrutiny? Right now, you have a very slim moment where a lot of the media doesn't want to be burnt again. They don't want to be burnt again. They want to go all in on another Platner because it's humiliating to them. And also, guess what then happens? Republicans end up winning. Republicans right now are doing the amazing strategy of shutting up and letting other people be retarded. Again, here's the scrutiny again, right afterward.
Really sparked my curiosity because I watched it. I didn't watch it live, but I did watch it this morning. Is that Haley Stevens has been criticizing you for not releasing your personal finance disclosure until after the primary. The former strategist in me is like, why not just release it and take her talking point away?
We absolutely will, and we intend to. Sometimes finances are complicated, and I can only control what I can control. And unfortunately, when it comes to tax documents, sometimes they're really complicated to get. We are absolutely going to release it before the primary.
Yeah, sure. Right before the primary. I love it. I love it so much. It's excellent. Now, also, again, because we all have the clips, he is just like all of the other hyper-socialist candidates who are in the primary. They're running against two groups of people. They're running against the super duper evil establishment that's definitely run by the Jews with their bagels and their hats, and Israel and the Gaza genocide. Oh my God, quick, my pearls, my very halal pearls, the horror. And then also abolishing ICE, because of course they're all the same candidate. They're the same freaking thing. So anyway, here you go. As promised, the cardboard cutout cookie cutter Dem Soch candidate, even if he doesn't officially call himself a socialist.
Well, if Congresswoman Stevens makes it or Mike Rogers wins, either way, Israel will win. AIPAC is perfectly fine with either of my two opponents because they know that they will have a comfortable, reliable vote in the U.S. Senate. If you want politics to work for you, if you want politics to rebuild your schools or fix your infrastructure or to invest in your health care, you have an alternative choice.
Do you get that? There's the universal health care thing again. It's so predictable.
We're running to get money out of politics, put money in your pocket and pass Medicare for all. There's a reason that both Chuck Schumer and Donald Trump don't want to see me on the inside of the U.S. Senate.
There's the we got to put Robespierre in the guillotine.
Because I'm a threat to politics as usual.
He also said that he said if you are a CEO, then I'm dangerous. Again, right after the Brian Thompson assassination, this guy is yet again quite a piece of work. And then of course the abolishing ICE thing. He's loud and proud about it too.
I'm the only candidate in the race who has the courage to run to guarantee health care or to say that we just...
To guarantee health care?
Gotta abolish ICE because it's unconstitutional what they're doing right now.
Oh, it's unconstitutional. None of these people... He also, by the way, is one of the individuals that wants to establish a national property tax, which is not constitutional. There is no national property tax. Well, he wants to increase national property taxes. You can't increase something that doesn't currently exist. 0 times 5 is still 0. Same with Ilhan Omar. These crews who think they're going to come in, they're going to make demands, and they're just going to tell you, but all we wanted was health care. Just health care and hugs and to stop the genocide. That's all we wanted. Now, we've covered these crews. The left's traditional Beto O'Rourke approach. He's just a moderate. The Pete Buttigieg approach, where they're like, oh, see, this is a normal shucksy folksy from the Midwest, from the South, just like you. Even though he has all the same education and I guess the same background, they tell us, until we find all of the clips that say otherwise. He's just a good Bible-believing Christian. He just doesn't believe in Republican Jesus. James Tallarico in Texas, new scrutiny, new problems.
I'm always so thrilled when I get invited, to the Diwali festival. I think I've gone 2 years in a row now. And, also have gotten a chance to speak at some of our local mosques. And I find such wisdom and comfort and inspiration from faith traditions all over the world. And I find that they're all kind of equal pathways to truth.
Hang on. That again, I've gotten weird comments today when I've pointed out that this is a problem. Said, well, just keep your religion out of our politics. Right? It's not, none of this actually has to do with the religion aspect of it. It's that it is fact checking. He has made the argument himself, said, I am a Christian. I'm a real Christian. I'm a true Christian. And then once he is then scrutinized, for example, if I tell you that I am a good basketball player, I am absolutely not. Love watching it, can't play it at all. And then I get out on the floor, and while my big floppy 7-foot wingspan is moving around and I accidentally take a chunk out of the defender's cheek waving my arms around, then you might go, hey, I don't think you're actually that good of a basketball player, Tony. And you'd be right. And in this kind of a case, if he's like Mr. Big Christian Man, who's going to say, well, God's non-binary, you don't believe it, you better ask Apostle Paul, read the scriptures. He's also saying that he thinks all paths to God are equal and that Islam and Christianity, that's the same truth kind of a thing. That's a choice.
That's how I think, I always think of all of the world's faith traditions as like a circle with, that divine mystery of the universe in the middle. And we all have different names for that mystery, right? Whether it's God or Yahweh or Allah or Nirvana.
So first of all, he says God or Yahweh. The God Yahweh, Jehovah Jireh, that is the same God. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, that's the same God. Now, as it is very explicitly stated later on in the Quran, not the same. And then he's going to, again, this is so funny. This is like the Kwanzaa thing where like, well, there has to be a winter holiday for this, all these various other religions. Like, no. So then he's going to start listing a bunch of other things and like deities that they're not the same. It's such just pathetic, just pandering.
Yahweh or Allah or Nirvana.
Nirvana, yes. Yes, the famous God Nirvana.
The Great Spirit, whatever you call it.
Great Spirit for the Native Americans. Oh, slit my wrists. I hate it so much.
This is all, different pathways to the same kind of fundamental truth of reality. So yeah, it's something No,
if you are a Christian, again, the reason that I point this out, and others have said this as well, the very core fundamental belief of Christianity is that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. That's it. That's the whole point. And what Christ did illustrates the religion. That's the point. What did Christ do? What did you need as a person? What did he do for you as the Son of God and fully man? And then what did he say about it? Well, it just so happens in John chapter 14, again, the book where the Apostle John makes it very, very, very clear when he's talking to people about salvation specifically, because you've got Thomas who doubted all the time, saying, saith unto him, Lord, We know not whither thou goest, and how can we know the way? And Jesus said unto him, quote, this is verse 6, I am the way, not a way, not one of the ways, not kind of some of the ways, not if you click ways and route a different route. No, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. There are other verses in the New Testament. For there is none other gospel given among men whereby we must be saved. It is made explicitly clear for Christians that it's one way. By the way, it's also very insulting to Muslims as well, to suggest that, oh, it's all the same, and no matter what you do, you can do whatever. For actual Muslims, that's offensive as well. It's not just anyone forever, it's fun. So if you're going to claim to be Mr. Super Duper Christian expert, and it turns out you're a big phony and a fraud, especially running for senator from Texas, expect to be roasted and toasted. And then for yours truly to have boasted when you get spanked, which again, we know is happening very, very soon. So that said, before we kind of wrap things up here, all of this, it's the bad decisions galore everywhere, all the time. There is a future, because what are Republicans doing at the moment? There's a lot of people on the left who are outraged because Mitch McConnell, no one's really heard from him. And, oh, is he awake and is he coherent or is he brain dead or what? And I have told you here on the show before, I don't care. And that's not because I don't think that Americans should know. When I say that I don't care, I've said before here on the show before, it was cool for a lot of people. Guys, Mitch McConnell, who is retiring anyway, is absolutely already angry, grumpy, doesn't really have any place or decision to make, place to go, things like that, where he's going to become an effective senator. When I do my calculus, I already kind of mark him out. I'm not as interested in all of the speculation station. It just seems like a lot of it is people are just like really outraged over something that I don't think we're going to change anyway. Now, do I think there should be a special election and it should be soon and that kind of a thing? Sure, I absolutely do. The Kentucky Commonwealth law is more clear on this. You probably have to go over to a Kentucky media guide to get the down low on that. I will say this, however. There are a lot of Republicans in the entire, both the House and the Senate right now, in this midterm, who are simply sitting there and are not saying a damn ding. And that is a good strategy. Why? Because the House and the Senate aren't passing anything. They're not passing. Well, the House is passing things. But voters don't actually look at the House and say, oh, well, you're passing thing. The Senate just sucks. Therefore, I'm going to give you a pass. Voters don't do that. Voters condemn the Congress universally. And so if the voters aren't seeing a huge, blisteringly successful record from the House and the Senate, again, there are some good things. I think Reconciliation 3.0 is very excellent. There are a couple of other policy proposals we've talked about. Obviously, the Save America Act is great, but they're not going to break the filibuster to pass it. So in the meantime, if we can't do that, then being quiet instead of snatching defeat from the jaws of victory, I don't know, man. I say let the other side do some burning down. Don't interrupt your opponent when they are making a mistake. That, just for me, just for yours truly, that would be good, because they're making more mistakes than that. According to the outlet Foreign Policy, which they're very terrible at foreign policy, they have decided, Amanda Claysing has decided that we're going to go after Marco Rubio, the most popular member of the administration among both Republicans and independents. Polled among Republicans, Marco Rubio is the most popular member of the administration. It's not even close. And among independents, the gap is even bigger. Quote, Marco Rubio burned down the house to fix the sink. The Secretary of State must be seen as the chief architect of the Trump administration's assault on the rules-based order. So that's, no. Here's what she blames him on. She says that since he has taken office as the Secretary of State, he has eliminated human rights around the entire world. So because we stopped funding transgender theater in Colombia, Sesame Street in Iraq, atheism in Nepal, and all of these other various projects, that we have taken away human rights. This is going to be the move. I've said this before. There are criticisms that are available for anybody at any time. There are a number of really great criticisms for yours truly. And I don't just mean the physical appearances. I mean each and every little bit about me, and a lot of them richly deserved. The vice president, sure. The president, sure. The secretary of state, sure. Lots of members of the administration. But to hit Rubio on this, Like, this is your big midterms pitch from the establishment? Marco Rubio's mean? That's what you got? Oh, honey, sweetie baby, sugar, bless your heart, from Georgia to Alabama. That ain't gonna fly. That is not going to fly at all. So, look, what else do they have? What's the big issue? What, we think we're gonna pin people down on data centers? That's gonna be the big electoral issue? Voters are showing that they're becoming less interested or concerned about that by the day. They are, seriously. The concern for like the data center issue is losing its place. It's kind of an initial flare-up. A lot of the bubble stuff not yet happening. It's going to be an interesting couple of days, folks. Now, I will take just a few of the mail time questions here at the end of the show. So how that works, in our description, you can find our link to the Discord. There's a mail time channel there for me to answer a couple of questions. Is that super special? Is that amazing? No, it's just a little user engagement section, you know, just for every show's got to have something like that.
Mail time.
Mail time.
Mail time. On the Tony Kinnett Cast.
All right, now that my knockoff barbershop quartet's out of the way there, let's dig into a couple of questions, because you guys have had some pretty great questions. So, first of all, did the president end up leaving Turkey early or as scheduled? The president of the United States did end up leaving Turkey through a different route. One of his schedules, because he has several schedules that he could take, suggested he was supposed to spend another 24 hours there, but the president sent the Qatari Air Force One ahead of him and then flew behind it. Now, that's kind of where that rests. So that's kind of the update there. And then Trump is all now very happy with Spain today, all of a sudden, and insinuated that they honored a request. What could they have given? Spain gave us access to a couple of military access points temporarily, and then also promised to do a little bit more on the spending side. There's some back channel things. I don't think it's celebrating victory necessarily as much as it's positive reinforcement, dropping the carrot. We actually had an interview that we just did today with Wilson Beaver over at the Heritage Foundation on policy regarding NATO. We'll probably throw that up on the channel tomorrow morning on the YouTube channel for members access first only before we release it to everyone else. He's got a much better and thorough take on Spain than I do. And again, I'm very bitter because Spain cost the lives of Englishmen, Frenchmen, and Americans in Afghanistan. They did, because of their incompetence. So I'm obviously very biased even going into that conversation. From Mary Rose, Tony, are any new ships entering the Strait of Hormuz, and have all original ships gotten through? If by original ships gotten through, you mean a lot of the Iranian ships like getting out? Yeah, a ton of ships have gotten out and have gotten in. There are very few that are still kind of dry docked and waiting. Or should I say moored and floored, just stuck there for now. The problem is that now a lot of those Iranian ships are moored and floored somewhere else off the coast of China. We've shared this map on the show. I don't think that it's in the B-roll section for me to show you right now. But the Iranians have no one to sell their oil to, because during the Strait of Hormuz crisis, a lot of other countries started going other places. It was essentially kind of the nudge to, hey, you really got to reshore away from Iran and the Strait of Hormuz. And so a lot of countries did start doing so. Why is Foreign Minister Arachi still living? There is a diplomatic hierarchy in who you kill and when, because a complete power vacuum in which Iran just desisted into chaos for several months because no one in the leadership is alive at all would maybe not be the best approach. I can't really speak to that too much more. There is a hierarchy for which leaders are on the table and which ones are first. Don't count your chickens on Arachi making it out of the end of this year. Who's going to replace Graham Platner? Do you think it's going to be Janet Mills? This is from Kitty. I don't think it's going to be Janet Mills, but Maine voters in the Senate election don't really have Janet Mills knocking Susan Collins out cold either. She's not like Roy Cooper popular as a Democrat in North Carolina up in Maine. I don't see that happening. There's a question from Scanonymous that asks about some of the California election stuff that I can admit I don't really know enough yet about ballot seizure in California as being a felony act. Oh, sorry, are we getting some intro music here at the mail time? Sorry about that. Let me get rid of that for you guys. Sorry about that. is, in this case, are we actually seeing like some felonies? I'll have to look into that for you. I honestly don't know. Do we know if the VA is going to make Platner pay back his disability money that he's been getting? No. However, there will be some investigations, I suspect, in the next couple of weeks. I think there have been too many allegations within windows of investigation, at least with Kick. And I can't give you guys too many details. I know some things, but a couple of those things are off the record and on background statements, and I don't want to violate that trust at the moment. One of them is inside the Department of Justice. Two of them are inside the DNC. The DNC, who, by the way, provided some of those screenshots to the Department of Justice. So do I think there's a possible investigation coming? Yeah. Do I think that the VA is going to cut off disability benefits? I don't know enough about the rules for cutting off benefits to give you an educated answer there. So that said, I want to make sure there's not any more mail time questions here. I'm sorry about the mail time. I thought it was background video game music. No, it's the music that I have for the intro of the show. The song's called Sirocco, for the people who didn't ask. Red Eye Flight 6988 gave a $10 super chat and said, I just can't get mad about anything that happens to New York. They voted for it. Now they get to eat it. The problem is that those candidates and those people have an impact on the national argument. And I understand the theory of democracy being that, the people vote for what they want and then they get it good and hard. I hear you, but I also am of the opinion that if you are harming other Americans, especially through socialism or communism, of which there are communist control acts and levers that the government can use in which you believe to aiding and abetting a domestic terrorist organization, a foreign terrorist organization, whether that's a foreign national organization or a direct enemy regime, that should be taken care of. I don't care whether you're in New York or Los Angeles or in the backyard here in Indiana. I think that if you're a communist and you're harming American citizens, get the hell out. And if the state has to throw you out, so be it. That's what my tax dollars should be going for. Again, that's the kind of populist argument here. I'm tired of this, like the Constitution or the federal law is a death compact. It's a suicide compact. And then we all have to agree that based on principles, we'll all die together under freedom. No. The American history is filled with oodles, canoodles, and toaster strudels of times in which valiant men have made difficult decisions to remove the threat. And good things happened. I'll remind you, George Washington crushed several rebellions. Not to mention a group trying to foment French revolutionary matters in the United States. So, the original kind of national socialism being France. Carol Hutch, quick question for Tony. Whatever happened to the White House journalist dinner, the one that was interrupted and supposed to be rescheduled? That is happening at the end of this month, at the end of this month, I think, the 24th of July, I believe. Don't quote me. I don't think I'm going back for it. I hate going to certain places, and I just don't really see a reason. I really don't like some members of the press. And after walking out of that WHCA dinner after the attempted shooting, and like walking next to some of these people who are so proud of themselves and like kissing their own picture in the mirror kind of a thing. Yeah, nah. I think I'll pass going back to this one. Our White House correspondent, Elizabeth Mitchell at the Daily Signal, will do a phenomenal job of taking care of that one. All right, folks. I say, producer Daniel says, come on, we're almost to 100,000. We have one more question. I got you. Well, here's a great one from F Real Ninja. Are the IRGC just looking to get nuked if they take out Trump? No, but I do think that there is a chance that the United States could use elevated munitions like the mother of all bombs or a daisy cutter. Trump's getting kind of tired of this. He's getting done. And one of the ways that you can tell this, by the way, for fun, here, I'll shift out of the mail time to show you the clip that I pulled from this today. You can see Marco Rubio standing behind the president of the United States when he's asked about the Iranian leadership, and the man smirks.
Last month, you said Iranian leaders were very rational people, nice people to deal with, strong people, smart people. Today, you said they were scum, sick people, and being led by sick people. What changed, and do you think...
I got to know him. So, I've said that...
Rubio smirking and smiling, got to know him. Why? Because the memorandum of understanding and the love and hugs and the snuggles crowd was wrong. What's wrong? I don't care if it's George W. Bush. I don't care if it's Nikki Haley. I don't care if it's Steve Witkoff. I don't care if it's the vice president, who, again, I like a lot. And not only because I look like the man. But when it comes to these particular instances, some people should stick to domestic policy and leave the foreign policy to those who are willing to make tough decisions that don't require us to go clean things up years and years and years down the line. And that leads me to one final question here from Peter saying, look, do you think there could have been some more of a calculated approach of the president and his crew when Vance went to broker the MOU? Like, it sure showed unsurprisingly over and over and over again what the mullahs are all about. Like, was that maybe the point? I hate 3D chess. I hate 3D chess. I think the MOU was another gamble to kind of stabilize things and see if the Iranians would take it. I think there were some people who got kind of fooled. I don't think the vice president would actually have preferred to have been humiliated like he was at the conference. That was disgusting, and it was disrespectful by the Pakistani leadership and the Qatari leadership. It was disgusting. And again, they set themselves up for it, though. I don't know what to tell you. Do I think that it was like some part of a 3D chess move? No. Why? Because Trump doesn't operate. Trump very, very rarely, if ever, is like, humiliate me now for success later. The man's ego-driven, and understandably so. His negotiating style doesn't really change. That's why that people either say that like Trump is an evil genius or that Donald Trump is a big dumb idiot. No, he's literally been the same guy for his 50, 60 years of public life. He's made it very clear. Very few things change. And now his patience is out. And that's kind of that's what I'm thinking. Again, could I be wrong? Sure, I could be wrong. But those are the details that I have. So, that all said, I hope that you guys have a fantastic evening. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Liking and subscribing helps us a ton. We'll see you tomorrow at 7. And as always, take care.